Transformation of random variables mean we can change random variables. We can apply a function to random variables to get one or more random variables. We have already studied about functions of random variable, where we can see that if you apply a map to a random variable, you get another random variable. But what will be the distribution of this random variable? This is what we are going to study now. So this section deals with how do we compute the distribution of these functions of random variables, or we all call it what will happen when you transform a random variable. So we will start with one example of discrete random variable. Suppose x is a discrete random variable which only takes two values, a and b. So you can see there is some sample space here, and all the events here maps to a, all the outcomes here maps to a, and all the outcomes here maps to b. So let us denote this set by e, this event by e, which contains all the omega which will map to a. And this is rest will be E complement. This is made from all outcomes which map to. So the values x take is A and B. Probability that omega, probability that x is equal to A is equal to probability that of all omega which maps to this A, which let us denote as PA, and the probability that it maps to B is PB. They together make the PMF of x. So we assume that the PMF of x is known, which means we know what is the probability that x takes value A and B. The events that omega made from all omega says that x omega is A is known by E, and omega says that x omega is B is denoted by E complement. So these all maps to A and B, and this A and B together make the range of x. And the probability that A is PA and probability that x takes value B is PB. Now let us take another random variable which is defined as the following way, that for all omega, y omega is equal to gx omega. In particular here, gx is x square. So y omega is equal to x omega square for all omega. We know that in shortcut we also write it as y equal to gx or y equal to x square. We remove omega just as a shortcut, but it actually means same thing, that for every omega, we calculate y omega by calculating x omega square. Or whenever x, we know the value of x, it will, the value of y can be calculated directly by value of x. So here you can look at that all these outcomes which are mapping to A, they will map to A square. So y omega for all this omega will be A square. And for all these omegas here, y omega will be b square. So y will take two values, a square and b square. And what will be the probability of these two? So probability that y is equal to a square is probability of all omega says that y omega is a square, which is nothing but the probability of this e, which is equal to pa. Similarly, probability that y takes b square value is the probability of all these outcomes, which is PB. So hence the PMF of y can be given as when y is equal to a square, it is PA, and when y is equal to b square, it is PB. It only takes two values, which this range. Let us take one more example. Consider a discrete random variable which takes three values, -1, 0, and 1, and they are equally likely. Each of them is 1/3. Now consider the same random variable y equal to x square. What are the values x, y will take? It's a square operation. So 0 will become 0 and -1 and 1 both become 1. y actually takes only two values, 0 and 1. Once we know the range of y, we will calculate the probability that y takes these values. So probability that y is equal to 0, remember this is a shortcut, it actually means probability of all omega such that y omega is 0. And probability of, so that event that y omega is 0 is same as saying that x square omega is 0 because y is x square omega. So what are the omegas for which x square omega is 0? For them, x omega will also be 0 because x square omega is 0 only when x omega is 0. So probability that of all omega says that x square omega is 0 is same as probability of all omega says that x omega is 0. And what is the probability that x omega is 0 is 1/3. This we know by the PMF of x. Similarly, probability that of all omega says that y omega is 1 is same as saying that probability of all omega says that x square omega is 1. Now we know that x square omega can be 1 when x omega is 1 or x omega is minus 1. Both will give x square omega equal to 1. So in this event where y omega is 1, we all omega where x omega is 1 is also included, and all omegas where x omega is minus 1 is also included. So this can be written as a union of two events, all omega which maps to 1 and all omega which maps to minus 1 under x. So let us say this is E1, this is E2, so this is probability of E1 union E2. Now note that E1 and E2 are disjoint because E1 is all omega which maps to 1 and this is E2 is all omega which maps to minus 1, and x omega can only map to a single value. So all the omega where it is mapped in 1 cannot be there in E2 because E2 will map them to minus 1. These are disjoint. So applying the probability axiom, we can say the probability of the union of two disjoint events is the summation of the probability of both events. So this will be equal to probability of E1 plus probability of E2. Probability of E1 is probability that of omega such that x omega is 1, which is probability that x equal to 1, which is the PMF of x at 1, which is 1/3. This is PMF of x at minus 1, which is 1/3. So this summation will be 2/3. So now we know that y takes two values, 0 and 1. 0 it takes with 1/3 and 1 it takes with probability 2/3. So this is the way you can calculate the distribution of any of the transformation of a discrete random variable. First find out what is the range of this new random variable, and then for each value just find out what x it maps to, and then add the values of all such omegas and you will get the answer. Now we will see an example where we transform a continuous random variable. Let x be a continuous random variable with CDF fx small x. So this is known to us. Now suppose there is a random variable y which is related to x in the following way: y is equal to 2x plus 3. So this means that for any omega, y is 2x omega plus 3. This is the map from omega 2 for y. Now compute the CDF of random variable of y. That is a question which is asked. If we directly know this omega and a probability measure on the original sample space using and we know value of x, then we can directly know the map from omega to for y, but that is not known to us. We know the CDF of x. We do not know about the original probability space, and we are told that y is equal to 2x plus 3. And we will show that even this will uniquely determine the CDF of y, no matter what is the original sample space and probability measure. If y is equal to 2x plus 3 for all omegas, then this is the only CDF which is possible. So how do we compute this CDF of y? We will start with the basic definition. CDF of y is given by probability that y is less than or equal to small y. Or in full form, it means probability of all omega such that y omega is less than or equal to y. Note that we are using this omega in outcomes, although we do not know what is the exact sample space. But whatever it will be, there will be some outcomes, and that is what this small omega represents. So this is the probability of all outcomes such that y omega for them is less than or equal to y. Now we know that y omega is x omega plus 3. So this is equivalent to saying that this is equal to probability of all omega such that 2x omega plus 3 is less than or equal to y. Now this means that you can also write this as probability of all omega such that x omega is less than or equal to y minus 3 by 2. Now we know for any value a, probability of all omega such that x omega is less than or equal to a is nothing but the CDF of x at a. So this will be nothing but equal to CDF of x at y minus 3 by 2. So this is the relation we got, that if we know the CDF of x, we can just put the value of y, calculate y minus 3 by 2, compute the CDF at that point, and that will be my CDF of y at small y. So if x is a uniform random variable between 0 to 1, its CDF is given by this left. So we know that CDF before 0 would be 0, and after 1 it will be 1. And between 0 to 1, the CDF increases linearly as x. The CDF of y would be the CDF of x evaluated y minus 3 by 2. And if you look at y minus 3 by 2, it means that you have to shift by 3 and then you have to scale by 2. So this means the CDF of y will look like CDF of x, but it will start 3 and it will become 1 at 5. And in between, it will increase as x by y by 2. Slope would be slower because it has been scaled by 2. So what will be the expectation of y? That is little bit easier to compute. Even when we do not know the CDF of y, we can understand that expectation is a linear operation. So expectation of y would be equal to expectation of 2x plus 3, which will be equal to 2 into expectation of x plus 3, which will be given by 4 because expectation of x is half. And here also, if you look back the CDF of y, this is a uniform random variable because the CDF is similar to what you can expect for uniform random variable. It increases in a straight line between A to B. Right? If you recall the CDF of a uniform random variable between A and B, it is 0 before A, it becomes 1 at B, and between A to B, it increases in a straight line. The straight line is telling that its slope is constant, so it is accumulating the density in a uniform rate. Okay, if you see that distance covered is increasing in a straight, it means the derivative is constant. Okay, so here also, because this is constant, it means its derivative, which is density, is constant, which means it's a uniform random variable. If the density is constant in the interval, it means it is uniform in that interval. So here also you can guess for uniform random variable, the expectation is given by the midpoint of the interval. Here the interval is 3, 5, so midpoint would be 4, which is same here. Let us see one more example. The previous case was linear. Let us take one more case where we take a uniform random variable between -1 and 1, which is x. And then we have a new random variable, which is y equal to x squared. And we are interested in computing the CDF of x squared. So CDF of this new random variable x square or y is given by probability that y is less than or equal to small y, which in other way we can say it is equal to probability of all omega, probability of set of all those omega such that y omega is less than or equal to y, small y. And y omega is x square omega, so this will be same as saying probability of all omega such that x square omega is less than or equal to y. Now, when is x square omega less than or equal to y? When x omega is between minus root y and root y. Okay, so in that case, x omega would be less than or equal to y. So what is the probability that x is between these two numbers? So you can say that probability that x is between a and b is equal to the probability that x is less than or equal to b minus probability that x is less than or equal to a. Okay, so if you have this interval from a to b, if I know the probability that x is less than b, and if I remove the probability that x is less than a, what I will be left with is the probability that x is between a and b. Same we will use here. Probability that x omega is between root y minus root y is equal to CDF of x at root y minus CDF of x at minus root y. If I know the value of CDF, I can very easily calculate this subtraction. So for uniform random variable between -1 and 1, we know that it is 0 before -1 and it is 1 after +1, and in between -1 and 1 it increases as half plus x by 2. So for CDF of y, I have to calculate fx root y minus fx minus root y. So you can calculate this, and also note that when y is less than equal to 0, this would be that probability x square omega is less than or equal to a negative number if y is negative, which there is no omega for which x square omega would be less than a negative number. It's a positive number. So for any y negative, this will be a null set and the probability will be 0. So for less than y less than or equal to 0, fyy is 0, and this is only true when y is greater than or equal to 0. So we know that for y less than 0, it is 0, and 5 greater than 0, it is given by this equation. So we plug it back, and what we get is, if y less than 0, it is 0. If y is between 0 and 1, it is square root of y. And when y is greater than 1, this means x square omega is less than or equal to a number which is more than y. So it includes the complete sample space. So it will be 1. Now we will see how we can compute the PDF, the density of a transformation of a continuous random variable directly. So once we have the CDF, we can of course differentiate it and calculate the derivative. In this example, we will try to evaluate it directly from the PDF of x if it is given. So suppose x is a random variable and its density is fxx. And I'm talking about a random variable which is y equal to 2x plus 3. And then my question is, what is its density? So let us assume the density of y is equal to f phi small y. And this is a linear transformation. So we can expect that the density, this y would also be a continuous random variable. So its density should be well defined. Now we know that for any Borel set a comma b, the probability that y belongs to b should be equal to the integration of this density on the interval ab. This is by definition this is from the definition of density that if the density is known, probability that y belongs to any interval should be equal to the integration of density on this interval. So now also note that the event that y belongs to B is equal to is nothing but set of all outcomes such that y omega is in B, and y omega is equal to 2x omega plus 3. So this means it is equal to set of all omega such that 2x omega plus 3 belongs to B. So B here I am talking about A to B. So this means 2x omega plus 3 should be A between A and B. So in other words, this will mean that x omega should be between a minus 3 by 2 and b minus 3 by 2. That is just from the some substitution. Now probability that, the probability of the event that omega is between two numbers, probability of any event says that x omega is between two numbers a and b is equal to the integration of the density of x between a to b. Okay. So when it was y belongs to some interval, it was density of y. When I say that probability that x is probability of all omega says that x omega is between two values c and d, then that should be the integration of density of x from c to d. So in this case, I am interested in knowing the probability that x omega is between a minus 3 by 2 and b minus 3 by 2. So that probability should be equal to the integration of density from a minus 3 by 2 to b minus 3 by 2. So there is a typo here. This is the event, and this is equal to the probability of y belongs to b. Okay, because probability of y belongs to b is equal to probability that x is between these two values, and that is given by the integration of density in this interval. Now, regardless whether we compute from the density of x or density of y, the probability that y belongs to b should be same. So from this calculation, we can say that the integration of density of y between a to b should be equal to the integration of density of x from a minus 3 by 2 to b minus 3 by 2. So now our idea is to somehow find some function of fyy so that we can say that these two are also equal. First, notice that to be able to tell anything about the inner term from the integral, we have to first make sure that the limits are same in both sides. Then we can compare the inner terms. So to make, let us take the right hand side. To make the lower limit a and the upper limit b, if we multiply by 2 and add 3, the lower limit will become a and the upper limit will become b. Okay, that is easy because by 2, so you multiply by 2 and add 3 to get a. Similarly in the upper limit. So what function we can apply? We can think that we can apply z equal to 2x plus 3. So if you substitute this, then dz equal to 2 dx, that is just substitution integral, and then the upper limit will become z would become 2x plus 3, so upper limit will become b and the lower limit will become a. So this integration of density of x from a minus 3 by 2 to b minus 3 by 2 can also be written in terms of z as dx will become dz by 2, limits will become a to b, and small x, I substitute x is equal, because z is equal to 2x plus 3, x is equal to z minus 3 by 2. So that I will substitute here. So instead of x, I will have z minus 3 by 2. So this integration will become from a to b half fx z minus 3 by 2 dz. And remember, this is equal to this. So I will put here this. Now this limit and this limit are equal to each other. So what I get is fy dy from a to b is equal to half fx z minus 3 by 2 dz take from A to 2. So these limits are same, right? Can we say something about the integral term? Now, first of all, we have to notice that this is true for any A and B. Okay, this is the first required condition, that to be able to compare two integrals, this condition should be true for any possible value of A and B. If it is true for only few values, that is not, you cannot compare. But we have seen that when we are proving this, we did not assume anything on A and B. So this means this should be true for every A and B. Now, we will take B equal to A plus epsilon. And epsilon is a very small number. So this integration from A to A plus epsilon, if epsilon is very small, this will just become the density multiplied by P minus A, which is epsilon. Okay. So in a small interval, you can say the integration is just the value multiplied by the length of interval. Similarly here, if epsilon is very small, we can say this is equal to half fx a times 3 by 2 into epsilon. So this epsilon cancels out. And what we get is that for any value a, fy of a is equal to half fx a minus 3. So if I know the CDF of x, I know this. I want the CDF of y. First, to calculate the PDF of y, I will just take the density of x and compute its value at a minus 3 by 2 and multiply by half. So there is a relation between the two density which we can calculate. So how does this look like? Let us understand. Let us take an example where x is a uniform random variable. So we already seen a CDF will be like this, and the CDF of transform random variable will be like this, which will be the scaled version of this. The PDF, on the other hand, of the uniform random variable is 1 between 0 to 1. What will be the PDF of y? So let us look at that. For any value a, the PDF of y at a is equal to half fx a minus 3 by 2. Okay. And what is the PDF of x? It is equal to indicator that x is between 0 to 1. So if this condition is not true, the PDF is 0. In between this condition, it is 1. So I'll put this back here, and I get it is equal to half indicator. And instead of x, because this is fxx, here I have to compute fx of a minus 3 by 2. So I will put this here. So I will get 0 less than or equal to a minus 3 by 2 less than or equal to 1. From this, I will get probability half into indicator that a should be between 3 and 5. So this means if this condition is true, a is between 3 and 5, it is half, and rest it is 0. So this is the new delta. And you can verify this that if you integrate this before 0, before 3 it will be just 0. After that it's a constant density, so it will linearly increase. And then after 5, it will again become constant because the derivative is 0. So in the previous example, we have taken a particular function y equal to 2x plus 3, and we have calculated its density. We will now see that it is possible to, based on that example, it is possible to find a density transformation for a general function in the form of a formula, which will be helpful in quickly computing the density for this transform random variables. So to see how we can get this, we will start with a simpler case. Let us assume y is equal to gx, where g is a monotonically increasing function and its inverse exists. So monotonically increasing means it can be like x square or anything which is increasing x cube, linear functions. So this g is a general function which is monotonically increasing and inverse exists. And for these functions, I want to compute, if I apply this to random variable x, what will be the density of y? So let us take a Borel set A comma B. And then for other types of Borel set, you can apply the same logic in terms of union of open intervals. So let's assume V is an open interval from A to B. Then the event that Y belongs to, it is set of all outcomes such that Y omega is between A and B, written equivalently as omega such that X G of X omega is between A and B. Okay, so if G of X is between A and B, and G is a monotonically increasing function, we can say that this is the same as saying that X is between G inverse of A and G inverse of B. Okay, so why? Because if X is between them, if you apply function G, it's a monotonically increasing function. So G of X will be between G of G inverse B, which is B, and G of G inverse A, which is A. So you can quickly plot these functions and just sketch it, and you can see why this condition makes sense. That and the property we have used is that they are monotonically increasing. So anything between these and these, anything between these and these, their G function would also be between these two numbers. So from this, we can say the probability that Y belongs to AB, which is can be written as integration of density from A to B. If this is the density, this is by definition. And then because we can also write in terms of X omega, equivalently, the probability of this event would be the integration of density of X between this and this. So this will be the integration of fxx dx from G inverse A to G inverse B. Now again, we want to compare these two inner terms of these two integration. So I'll try to make the limit same. So what substitution I can do so that the limit becomes A and B. So if I apply, take z equal to gx, this will make the lower limit g of G inverse A equal to A, and then the upper limit as g of G inverse B, which is B. So let us apply this substitution on the right hand side. So z equal to gx, this means dz is equal to g dash x dx. Okay, because g dash x is the derivative of gx. So this integration will be written as, with new substitution, this will be from A to B. Dx will be dz by g dash x. And fxx would be equal to fx of g inverse z. Okay, because x is nothing but x is equal to g inverse of z. So I apply here. Here also, just remember that in this x, this is also g inverse z. Okay, so when we do this substitution, we sometimes say that dx is equal to dz by g dash x, but we have to calculate it in terms of z because this integration is in terms of z. So x is equal to g inverse of z, which we'll have to put here. So this will be the integration from A to B of density of Y should be equal to the integration of this term from A to B, and this term is fxs G inverse Z. So PDF evaluated at G inverse of Z and divided by the derivative evaluated at G inverse Z into dz. So now we will apply this concept. We will replace the upper limit b by a plus epsilon, and then this will show that if the previous condition was true for any a and b, then it means the integration should be, the inner term should also be equal. So this will give you that the PDF of y at evaluated y should be equal to the PDF of x evaluated at g inverse y divided by the derivative of g evaluated g inverse y. Okay, so this is what? This is nothing but the PDF of x divided by the derivative of x, derivative of gx evaluated at g inverse y, which is a root of this function for anyone. So I have to compute it for y, and what I do is first I will compute its root, that what x it corresponds to, and then I compute the value of this ratio at this x. So this is the formula we get. And let us see how this formula can be applied to the example we have seen in the past. So if you recall, the example which we saw was that there is a x a random variable and y is equal to 2x plus 3 is a monotonically increasing function. So if this is gx, the derivative is 2 and g inverse y is y minus 3 by 2. So if I take this and evaluate it at this root, this means this will be equal to PDF at y minus 3 by 2 divided by 2. This derivative is constant, so no matter where we evaluate it, it will be just 2. So this is the same answer we also got in the previous example. We will evaluate the same for a few more questions just to see how this can be applied. Suppose x is now a uniform random variable between -1 and 1. In that case, the PDF of x is given by half if x is between 1 and -1 and 0 otherwise. This can also be written as half into indicator that x is between 1 and -1. So if this condition is true for x, this will be half. If not, it will be 0. So if I apply the same transformation to x plus 3, then my PDF will be f(y) would be half fx y minus 3, and I will apply the PDF here. So this will, I just replace this value at x because I have to evaluate the PDF at this value instead of x. So I'll just replace this value at here to get it is equal to 1 by 2 indicator -1 greater than or equal to y minus 3 by 2 greater than or equal to 1 less than or equal to 1. And there is an extra half factor, this will become 1 by 4. So this, if you solve it further, this will give you 1 by 4 into indicator that y should be between 5 and 1. So this means it is 1 by 4 when y is between 1 and 5 and it is 0 otherwise. Okay, so this should be y. So this is between -1 to 1, it is half and 0. The integration of this PDF is 1. And here also it has scaled. So now it is 1 by 4 between 1 and 5 in the interval of 4. The integration of the PDF is still 1, but its interval has been changed and its value has been changed. So now we will extend our calculation a little bit more. If we include monotonically decreasing function also, the only difference you will see that when you are calculating this is a monotonically decreasing function. So this condition will be equivalent of saying that x omega is between g inverse of b and g inverse of a. Okay, it's a monotonically decreasing function. So if b is more than a, this means g inverse of b should be less than g inverse of a. Okay, or you can understand this way also. If g inverse b is less than g inverse a, then if you apply function g on it, b will be. So this will be changed. It will also be negative. Both will cancel each other because in the integration this interval. You can work out this and you will find out that in that case there will be a negative sign in the bottom. Okay, negative of derivative. So if you want a formula which works for monotonically increasing and decreasing both, I'll just put the absolute value. Because for monotonically increasing function, this will be positive. So absolute will not change anything. For monotonically decreasing function, this will be negative. So absolute actually does the same thing. So the PDF of y is evaluated at the ratio of PDF of x and the derivative of g evaluated at g inverse y. Okay, and the denominator I will take the absolute value. I will cover one more example. Suppose y is equal to 2x cube plus 3. Suppose this is the gx, then the g inverse z would be z minus 3 by 2 to 1 by 3. Let's assume it's real values only, so there's only one root here. And the derivative would be 6x square, and x is nothing but g inverse z. So the derivative at g inverse z is equal to 6 z minus 3 by 2 to power 2 by 3. Okay, so and just look at this calculation again. G dash g inverse is given by this function, and derivative is 6x square. So if I want to evaluate it at g inverse z, this will be 6 into g inverse z square, which is this. So distribution of y is the PDF evaluated at g inverse z divided by the PDF evaluated at g inverse y, and 6 x square evaluated at g inverse y, which will give you this calculation. So if x is a uniform random variable, I can, this is the PDF, I can apply it here, and you will see that the denominator will change with y, but the numerator will be computed by equal to half if the term is between -1 and 1, which will give you that if y is between 5 and 1, then, so this should be 5. If y is between 5 and 1, then this PDF would be half. Otherwise, it will be 0. Okay, so when it is half, this whole thing will become 1 upon 12 y minus 3 2 to power minus 2 by 3. And when it is not in this, it will be just 0. So we have seen for monotonically increasing and decreasing function. In both cases, the roots are unique. But let us extend it further. Assume it doesn't follow a particular monotonically increasing or decreasing root. It can increase and decrease also. This means there can be multiple roots of gx. So what if multiple roots of this exist, this function? This means the inverse is not unique. Okay, an example could be y equal to x square. If you look at the inverse, it can be square root of x, which can be both plus root x and minus root x. And this affects when x takes value both in the positive and the negative value. Okay, let's see, x is a uniform random variable between -1 and 1. So it is both values in the negative and positive can occur with non-zero probabilities. Okay, so in that case, I have to consider both roots, root x also, minus root x also. If you somehow come across x as that it only takes value in the positive side, you may ignore the second root because it will not have any density. But in this case, it will have. So what should we do if we want to compute the density of this random variable x square? So first thing we notice that if we want the probability of any interval 0.4, 0.9, suppose, this means probability that x square is between 0.4 and 0.9. So here two different events can occur. Either x is between 0.2 and 0.3, or x is between minus 0.3 and 0.2. In both cases, x square would be in between this. And also these are disjoint events. So I can say the probability that x belongs to union of this can also be written as probability that x belongs to this and probability that x belongs to this. So this can be written as summation of two intervals. Okay. This is coming from the first root and this coming from the second root. Okay. So let us, how do we proceed in this case? Let us take a special class of this. Let's assume gx has two roots, g1 inverse y and g2 inverse y. So g1 inverse y here would be root y and g2 inverse here would be minus root y. Okay. So this is the original proof. If you recall, for any b from between A to B, we first say that probability y belongs to AB can be equivalently written as omega, such that x omega is between G inverse A and G inverse B. So in that case, what we get is that the PDF of the integration of PDF of y between A to B is equal to the integration of PDF of x from G inverse A into G inverse B. Okay, and then we applied the substitution to make this interval same, and then we derived the result. Here, if you look at after this step, where omega says that G of x omega is between A and B, this will not be just equal to this, but it will give you two different events. One is omega says that x omega is between the first root. Okay, so x omega is between G1 inverse A and G inverse of B. If it is monotonically increasing, if it is decreasing, they will be the other way around. Okay, similarly, second also omega, x omega will also be for the second root will be this. And again, if it's monotonically decreasing, this will be the other way. So if there are more cases, there will be also more union. All of these intervals, if you apply G to them, they will give a value between A and B. Okay, because they are all roots. So if you apply function G here, they will also map to A and B, and the value between them will map to A and B. Here also the same thing. So in that case, I can say the this is same, but the probability of this event will be probability of this plus probability of this. Probability of this is integration of density from G inverse A to G inverse B, and this will be G2 inverse A into G2 inverse B. And then you will apply substitution in both cases. You will just apply Gx, and you will get the same equation. Only thing is the root will be different here and here. Okay, so in the original expression, if you look at, we evaluate the density at the root. Here there are two roots, so we'll evaluate at both of them, and then we have to add, because this, when you remove the limits, the integral here is this plus this, which should be equal to this. So what we get is, if there are n roots at y, okay, so this we also have to remember that depending on the value of y, there can be one root, two roots, and if you change y, number of roots can also change. So in that case, I'll take all the roots. So first one is G inverse, G11 inverse y, second is G2 inverse y. These are all different roots. So the total PDF is evaluated. You will take the ratio of density divided by the derivative, evaluate it at each root, and then you add them up. Okay, so once again, you will take the ratio of density of x divided by the derivative of g, evaluate it at g1 root, g2 root, and all those roots, and then you will add them. This will be your complete density. Okay, and then you can remember why this sum is coming, because all of these intervals around this roots are contributing, are mapping to y. Okay, all of these roots map to y. So if I take the small intervals around all these areas, they will all map to an area around y. So they will all contribute to the overall probability around y. So the density of y will depend on the summation of all those. So let us take one example for this. Suppose I take this x square, then it has two roots, root y and minus root y. So for the first root, the derivative is 2x. So the derivative evaluated at this root is 2 root y. So when I compute this, this will be PDF evaluated at root y divided by the derivative evaluated at root y, which is 2 root y. So this is, if I take, again, this, then the forward will depend on the PDF of x. Suppose the PDF of x is half. If I am taking that uniform random variable between -1 and 1 case. So in that case, the PDF will be half if y is between sorry. So if y is between 0 to 1, this will be half. and this is 2 root y, so I'll get 1 upon 4 root y. Okay, so when y is less than 1, then this PDF will give you 1. Okay, because when y is less than 1, then this root y will also be less than 1, and then this will be half. If it is more than 1, the density will be 0. So I am doing this, recall again, I am doing this for the x, which is a uniform random variable between -1 and 1, and I am assuming here y is between 0 to 1. Similarly, the second root will be minus root y, the derivative would be minus 2 root y. When I take the absolute value, it will be still 2 root y, and the upper side is minus root y. So if y is between 0 to 1, this will be between -1 and 0, which will also give you half. So this will be 1 upon 4 root y. So if I add the 2, I will get 1 upon 2 root y. Okay, so I have to add them. So density would be 1 divided by 2 root y. Okay, if I take this, okay, and if I put the PDF here, I will get this thing. So this is a general result which will work on any PDF. If you change PDF, you will just put it there and add it. Okay, so you can see if y is between 0 to 1, I will get 1 upon 2 root y. If y is more than 1 or less than 0, I will get 0 density. We will now see how we can compute the expectation of a function of random variable. If x is the random variable and g is a function of this random variable, then g of x is also a random variable. Let's call y equal to gx. So if we want to calculate the expectation of gx or y, we can compute by this way. Suppose it's a continuous random variable, then expectation of gx is equal to integration of gx over the density of x dx. This is the notation we have seen earlier, that if there is a function of x, the expectation can be computed by computing its value at each point x, multiplying by the probability that it takes a value around the interval. Now, gx is y also. So if we know the PDF of y, then we can also calculate the expectation of y by integrating the integrating y with over the PDF of y. So these two both are valid definition. One is coming from when treating x as a random variable and computing the expectation of g of x. This one is treating the y as a random variable and computing the expectation with respect to y. So the question is, are these equal? They should be equal because both of them is a valid expression. Both of them are valid expressions. So we will see how they are equal. We'll start with this expression, and in this we will do a substitution y equal to gx. So if you put y equal to gx here, you will see it is gx, fyy, y will become gx, and then dy will become g dash x dx. So this is the expression we have now. Now we will notice that here there is a PDF of y. So if you want this expression, we have to somehow convert this PDF of y to PDF of x. And we have a conversion equation for that. So we know that fyy is equal to fx g inverse y divided by g dash g inverse y. This is the expression we have computed for monotonic functions. So yeah, so we are currently assuming that g is a monotonic function and increasing. For other cases, it's also possible to compute that. The expression will be a little bit tedious. So now let us put this back here. So fy, when you put this back, numerator will be fx of g inverse of gx. So g inverse of gx would be x. So this will be fxx. And then this is g dash of g inverse of y, and y is gx here. So you will put g dash of g inverse of gx, which is g dash of x. So you get this expression. Now here g dash and g dash will cancel out. So what you get is gx fxx dx. So I have not considered some technical condition here, but this is in general proof that EY expectation of Y can be either written in this format or in this way, and both will give you same answer because Fy is actually connected with Fx in this special way. This is for continuous random variable. For discrete random variable, the proof is rather easy. You can try it. Now, we know that we see two ways. That one was whether we can directly compute CDF of the random variable y. And the second thing is where we see that if we know the PDF of x, we directly computed the PDF of the transformation of x. And this is a simpler way because there is a direct expression, but it works only for continuous random variable to continuous random variable transform. If one is PMF, this will not work. But the CDF method will always work whether you have a CRV to discrete random variable, discrete to CRV, or discrete to discrete, because CDF always exists for these cases. Sometimes we even don't know because the random variable can be a discrete random variable or continuous random variable, but it can also be a mixture of both. It may happen that some places it has density and other places it has mass. So in those cases, it's not possible to know what kind of transformed variable would we get. So we can always go with the CDF method in those cases whenever we had doubt. We will see one example. So this case is where I'm transforming continuous random variable to discrete random variable. See, if we know the second one is discrete random variable, I could have directly computed the mass also. But if suppose we don't even know that it can be a DRV or a CRV or a mixture of both. So we will see how CDF will give the results for those cases. So let U be a uniform random variable in the interval 2, 3, and let Y be defined as Y equal to GU is 1 when U is less than or equal to 2.5 and 3 when U is greater than 2.5. So U is a uniform random variable. So it can be in interval 2, 3. And all the outcomes which are less than 2.5 will map to 1, and all the outcomes which are more than 2.5 will map to 3. So this is, if we look at this, will be a discrete random variable because it takes only two values. And if I want to compute direct mass, I can say probability that y is equal to 1 is probability that u is less than 2.5, because all the outcomes for which u is less than 2.5, for them y is equal to 1. So probability of all omega says that y omega is 1 is equal to probability that all omega says that u omega is less than 2.5. And the probability would be half. So it will be half with 1, and so it will be 1 with probability half, and it will be 3 with probability half. But if this was a mixture of both, then we don't know it's a PMF or PDF. So in that case, I'll also tell you if you can directly calculate CDF also. So in that case, you would be interested in computing probability that y is less than or equal to y. And you will change y, and then we observe the values of this function, and that will be your CDF. So if y is less than 1, if you put anything, then probability that y is less than this number, there will be no omega which will map to a number less than 1, because all are mapping to 1 and 3 only. So this will be 0 probability. If 1 is between 1 and 3, sorry, y is between 1 and 3, so then all the omega which maps to 1 under y will be included in the pre-image set. So they will be all omega for which u omega is less than 2.5, so probability will be 0.5. And when y is more than 3, then it will contain both complete outcomes, so probability will be 1. So if you plot this, you will get a discrete PDF, and it's nowhere continuous. Sorry, it is not, it's continuous in other places, but it is discrete at these 2 points. So it's a discrete random variable. It is not growing anywhere, which is an indication that it's a PDF. So it's a complete discrete random variable.